Have you ever said yes when you actually wanted to say no? A small request, a simple invitation, a quick favor, and without thinking, you say yes, not because you want to, but because it feels easier. Easier than explaining, easier than disappointing someone, easier than being misunderstood. I didn't notice how often I did this until one day I felt something strange. My life was full of messages, full of plans, full of conversations, but inside, it didn't feel quiet. It felt crowded, like there was no space left. For me, that night I sat alone for a while. No music, no distractions, just a simple thought. When was the last time I chose something only because I wanted it? Not because I had to, not because someone expected it, just because it felt right. I couldn't remember. And that's when the idea came. A small idea, almost uncomfortable. For 3 days, I would say no to everything, not forever, just 3 days. No extra plans, no unnecessary conversations, no automatic yes. Only one rule. If it didn't feel right, I would say no. The next morning, it started quietly. A message appeared on my phone. Hey, are you free later? A simple question, the kind I would normally answer without thinking. Yes, sure. But this time, I paused. I read it again and asked myself something I had never really asked before. Do I actually want this? The answer came quickly. No. Not because the person was wrong. Not because the plan was bad. Just because I felt tired. And for the first time, that felt like a good enough reason. My fingers stayed still for a moment. Then slowly, I typed something different. Not today. I stared at the message before sending it. It felt small, but also strangely heavy, like I was about to break a pattern that had been part of me for a long time. I pressed send and waited. A few seconds passed. Then a reply. Okay, no problem. That was it. No anger, no disappointment, just acceptance. And in that quiet moment, I felt something unexpected. Relief. A soft, quiet relief. Nothing around me had changed, but inside, something had shifted. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. A little more space, a little more calm. Later that day, it happened again. Another request, another moment, another chance to say yes or no. And again, I paused because now I was paying attention, not to what others wanted, but to what I felt, and that was new. As the day slowly moved forward, one quiet question stayed in my mind. If saying no feels this peaceful, why have I been saying yes for so long? The second day didn't feel as simple, not because it was harder to say no, but because I started to notice what came after it. That morning, my phone felt different in my hand, not heavier, but more intentional. Every message felt like a choice, every notification, like a small door waiting to be opened or closed. The first request came earlier than I expected. Can you help me with something later? I read the message slowly. Yesterday, I would have said yes without thinking, but now there is a pause, a real pause, not just silence, but awareness. I asked myself the same question again. Do I want this? This time, the answer wasn't so clear. Not a strong no, not a strong yes, just uncertainty. And that made it harder, because saying no when you are sure feels simple, but saying no when you are unsure feels uncomfortable. I held my phone for a few seconds longer. Then I typed slowly. I can't today. I sent it, and almost immediately, a small feeling appeared. Guilt, not loud, not overwhelming, but there, quiet and persistent. Maybe I should have helped. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I was overthinking everything. The thoughts came one after another. And for a moment, I wanted to take it back, to send another message, to explain, to apologize, to say yes again. But I didn't. I just sat there and watched the feeling. The guilt didn't disappear right away. It stayed, moved slowly, then, little by little, it softened, not because I fixed it, but because I didn't run from it. That was new. Usually I would react quickly, change my answer, make things easier. But now I was learning to stay with discomfort, to stay with uncertainty. And something surprising happened. The feeling passed, without me doing anything. Later that day, I noticed something else. My time felt different, less crowded. There were no extra plans, no sudden changes, just space. And in that space, I started to feel something I didn't expect: loneliness. Not deep, not painful, but noticeable. Because when you say no to everything, you also step away from people, from conversations, from connection. And for a moment, I questioned everything. Is this really a good idea? Am I creating peace or just pushing everything away? The thought stayed with me for a while, but instead of reacting, I stayed with it. Again, that evening, I sat quietly in my room. No plans, no noise, just the soft presence of time passing. And slowly, the loneliness changed. It didn't disappear, but it became something else, something calmer, more gentle, less like something I needed to escape, and more like something I could understand. I realized something simple. There is a difference between being alone and feeling empty. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to fill every empty space. I was just letting it exist. As the second day came to an end, one quiet thought stayed with me. If I can sit with guilt and even loneliness without running away, what else have I been avoiding all this time? By the third day, something felt clearer, not easier, but more honest. The first 2 days were full of reactions, saying no, feeling guilty, questioning everything. But now, there was less noise inside my head. The emotions were still there, but they didn't control me the same way. That morning, I didn't wait for messages. I didn't check my phone again and again. I just moved through my day, slowly. And when a message finally came, I noticed something new. I wasn't afraid of it anymore, not afraid of the question, not afraid of the choice, just aware. Are you joining us later? A simple invitation. Before, I would think about what they expected, what I should say, what would make things easier. But now, I asked a different question. What feels right for me? I stopped for a moment, listened carefully, and the answer came, quiet but clear. No. This time, there was no guilt. No long explanation in my head. No need to justify it. Just a simple truth. I won't join today. I sent the message, and something surprising happened. Nothing. No heavy feeling, no tension, just space. A calm, open space inside me. As the day continued, I began to see something I hadn't seen before. How often I used to say yes, not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid of silence, afraid of being alone, afraid of missing something, afraid of being seen differently. But now, that fear was quieter. It didn't disappear completely, but it no longer decided for me. In the afternoon, I sat alone again. No plans, no distractions, just a quiet moment. And instead of feeling empty, I felt steady, grounded, like I was finally standing in my own space, without needing to fill it. I thought about all the times I said yes before, all the small moments I ignored myself, and I understood something deeply simple. Every time I said yes to something I didn't want, I was saying no to myself, not loudly, but slowly, over time. And maybe that's why my life felt crowded, because it wasn't fully mine. That evening, the quiet felt different again. Not just peaceful, but strong. There was a kind of power in it, a quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, doesn't need to explain, just exists. Before going to sleep, I noticed one final change. I trusted myself more. Not because everything was clear, but because I was finally listening, really listening. As the third day came to an end, one thought stayed with me. Maybe saying no isn't about pushing the world away. Maybe it's about finally choosing where you belong. After the third day, something unexpected happened. The experiment was over. There were no more rules, no more, I have to say no. I could go back to normal, say yes again, accept invitations, respond the way I used to. Everything was available to me again, but something didn't feel the same. That morning, I looked at my phone. Messages were waiting, just like before. Nothing had changed on the outside, but inside, there was a pause, not forced, not heavy, just natural. A space between the message and my response. I read the first one. Are you free this weekend? Simple, normal. But instead of answering quickly, I sat with it. Not overthinking, not analyzing, just feeling. And that's when I noticed something important. I didn't need to react immediately. I had time. Time to choose. Time to understand what I actually wanted. That was new. Before, everything felt urgent. Like I had to respond, like I had to decide quickly, but now, there was no rush. I replied later, not instantly. And when I did, the answer felt right, not perfect, just honest. As the day went on, I noticed something else. Saying no for 3 days didn't make me distant. It made me clearer. Clearer about my energy, clearer about my time, clearer about my boundaries. And because of that, even my yes started to feel different, more real, more intentional. In the afternoon, I met someone briefly, a normal conversation, nothing special, but I was fully there. Not distracted, not thinking about what I should say next, just listening. And I realized something quiet but powerful. When you stop saying yes to everything, you start being present in what you choose. That evening, I didn't avoid everything anymore. I didn't need to. The experiment had already done its work. Now it wasn't about saying no to everything. It was about knowing when to say yes and when to walk away, without guilt, without fear, just clarity. I sat in my room again, the same quiet space, but this time, it didn't feel like an escape. It felt like a choice, a place I could return to whenever I needed to hear myself again. Before going to sleep, I thought about something simple. Nothing in my life had changed dramatically. The same people, the same routine, the same world. But one small thing was different. I was no longer reacting automatically. I was choosing. And maybe that is where real quiet begins. A few days later, life continued as usual. Messages came, plans appeared, people reached out. Nothing stopped. The world didn't slow down. But I did. Not in a visible way. No one around me would notice it immediately. But inside, there was a quiet difference, a small space between everything that happened and how I responded. That space changed everything. One evening, someone asked me for a favor, something simple, something I would have said yes to, without thinking. But this time, I paused, not because I had to, but because it felt natural. I checked in with myself. Do I really want to do this? The answer came gently. No. And for the first time, That answer felt complete. No guilt, no overthinking, just clarity. I can't help this time. I said it calmly, without explaining too much, without trying to soften it. And something surprising happened again. The moment passed. No conflict, no tension, just understanding. And in that moment, I realized something deeper. Most of the fear I had before was not about other people. It was about me. My fear of being seen as difficult, my fear of not being liked, my fear of creating distance. But when I stopped reacting automatically, those fears became quieter, not gone, but no longer in control. Over the next few days, I noticed a pattern. Every time I said no when I meant it, I felt stronger, not louder, not more aggressive, just more solid inside. And every time I said yes, it felt lighter because it was real, not forced, not automatic, just chosen. That was the biggest change. Not the word no, but the honesty behind it. One night, I sat in silence again. The same quiet space I had experienced before. But now, it didn't feel like something I had to create. It felt like something I carried with me, a quiet center, a place I could return to, even in the middle of noise. And maybe that's what this was really about. Not avoiding people, not disconnecting from the world, but learning where I begin and where others end. Learning that my time has value, my energy has limits, my attention is a choice. As I lay down to sleep, one final thought stayed with me. Saying no didn't take something away from my life. It gave something back: space, clarity, and a quiet kind of power that had been there all along. If this story made you reflect on your own boundaries, take a moment to listen to yourself today. And if you want to learn English through calm, meaningful stories like this, stay with us.